Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happen throughout the week. Peace to the Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/hip hop now. And if you would like to learn more, how you can support the podcast, or maybe you just want to do the Cash App thing, maybe I'll put that up. But nevertheless, the link to the Patreon account is in the description of this episode. Whether you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of the audio podcasting platforms where Hip Hop Now Podcast has been available for a very long time, or you're watching on a YouTube channel that has in some ways rejuvenated the podcast over the years. Patreon supporters a long time ago said, "Hey man, you should do a video podcast. We want to see you, man." Okay, well, here I am, man. I've been here since hip hop has turned 50. We were on the road to 500 subscribers. In the recent weeks, we hit the 500 subscribers. So appreciate everybody who supported, everybody who subscribed. Welcome to everybody who is new here as a part of this channel. It's not just shorts, you know what I'm saying? It's not just, little things I do here and there. I got some really, really, really dope things coming up, including a new episode of That Time in Hip Hop. So stay tuned for that really soon, really, really soon. But hitting 500 subscribers made it so that the podcast is visible when you're searching, right? It's not difficult to find. It kind of pops up really quick. Or if you watch a lot of hip hop content, podcasts, whatever it may be, they may suggest my podcast too. You see, when I was below 500, I didn't really get that. Now I'm getting that, and thus more people are finding the podcast, which is dope. But it's the road to 1,000, and I gotta say, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, we hit 500. I'm like, man, we at 520 is great, man. We at 650 now. So just like that, you see how quickly a channel can grow. Let's keep it going. If you're pulling up for the first time and you like it, but you're really not committed to subscribing yet, I get it. But if you know there are people who will rock with it, please, by all means, share it on all the platforms where hip hop heads congregate and say, yo, check out this topic. I was thinking this, I was thinking that. But definitely leave comments also in the comment section. I read them, I respond to them. It's all good. It's all community. Big shout out to hiphopdx.com, Double XL, man, who kind of been in their bag, bars. .com and a couple of places where I'm getting some of these stories from. Let's get right into the business stuff. All right, man. So recently, as in this past week, if you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here, man. You already know, man. The album out for you because you from the future. For those who don't know what I mean when I say that, I'm talking about the fact that once I air this podcast and it's new, right? Someone down the line will discover this very episode, and it could be 2-3 years from now. So that's what I mean. They're gonna be like, man, that album already dropped. Of course it did, bro. I recorded 3 years ago. Well, for the now, first of all, shout out to you, man. You watched my video 3 years later. I'm saying, all right, I could chill. So one of the most anticipated albums from a producer rapper duo this year obviously was P Rock and Common, right? And LL and Q-Tip. But there is two more, one of which I honestly do not think is dropping this year. That's Nas and DJ Premier. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but who knows? Maybe it is going to happen. We still have time before the end of the year. But one of the ones I was excited for that they was like, it's dropping in July. Then it was like, it's dropping in September. Then they were like, it's dropping in November. Now they're saying it's dropping in December, and that is Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre's follow up to Snoop's debut. I know he's had 100 albums since then, but this is a direct sequel to Doggy Style entitled Missionary. Now, that's a cutesy little title, but I was more so focused like, yo, if you've been following Snoop's career, especially post Death Row, every time he has teamed up with Dr. Dre on a song or whatever, it's been magic, right? Dr. Dre was involved, I think a lot, heavily was involved with blue carpet treatment, which a lot of people will say, if we're gonna look at Snoop's catalog, and honestly, it's not that many bad albums at all. Like it's really light on the bad album side. There's a lot of good albums, but people usually rank like Doggy Style, Blue Carpet Treatment, and then the rest because it was such a good album, and the songs that Dr. Dre did with him was crazy. I remember when Snoop went to No Limit, and I saw that first album cover, and I heard some of the music, and I was like, "Nah, Snoop doesn't sound good over these Manny Fresh beats." Da da da. Master P being the guy he is, and maybe even Snoop was saying something like, yo, let's go get Dre. And they got Dre on a couple of tracks, especially on his last album on No Limit called The Last Meal. And again, it was just like, man, Snoop and Dr. Dre, man, it's like when Snoop's working with Dre, he's just back to who you know from the original joint. So this album is dropping in December. I'm trying to see if I can locate okay, December 13th. So yeah, I got some time. Uh, and there's a new single which dropped today, which I did not hear. It's called Gorgeous, I think. And I will say this. Let me just confirm that that's the actual title. Yeah, Gorgeous. Now I haven't listened yet because I have a thing about listening to too many singles in advance, and sometimes I don't like the songs. But then when the album drops and I hear the song within the context of the album, it's like, no, I actually do kind of like it. So it's up in the air whether I'll listen to that record, but they released the track listing, and I will say this. Well, let's just go over the names and then I'll say what I think. So the track listing for Snoop and Dr. Dre's Missionary is 15 songs, right? Features include BJ the Chicago Kid, Dr. Dre, obviously. What's her name is Janae Eco? I don't know. You know who I'm talking about if you like her. Tom Petty and Jelly Roll. Okay, that's interesting. Sting, Method Man's on here. The verse is probably gonna be fired from Meth. Let's get it out the way. Um, the 50 Cent, Eminem. I'm trying not to just do a bunch of R&B people because a couple R&B people are here. More Dr. Dre. Uh, yeah. So for the most part, those are the people involved. Now, just off the track listing, people are so happy to go to Twitter to say, not just Twitter, social media in general, to say this doesn't look good. Sting, Jelly Roll, Tom Petty. I'm with you. I'm afraid. I'm not gonna lie. But I trust Dr. Dre. And he's with Snoop. It would be a monumental failure if they work on a full album together for the first time in a long time and you don't get what you're expecting. And I know it's missionary and I know it's a theme, and maybe you're trying to, I don't know, like clean it up a little bit because it's missionary. Don't do this. Don't do that at all. Don't do that at all, boy. What Otis from Martin, don't do that at all. Why? Like, do not do that because this. Trust me, I'm a big Star Wars fan. You could see some of my props back there. Got lightsabers and all of that. And as a comparison, like comparing them to Marvel, like Marvel knows how to satisfy a core fan base by giving them things that are not just fan service, but the fan service is embedded within the things they want to accomplish with the story. I feel like give us Snoop and Dre and do things within the confines of Snoop and Dre. All of these artists should be adapting to a sound that is familiar to us. That is Snoop and Dre. Don't experiment with no new joints. Don't say, hey, Jelly Roll, man, why don't you rap? We don't care about him. Okay? Different audiences. Stop ignoring us. We know who's who. I'm not excited for 50 Cent and Eminem and Snoop. It just, to me, just them three together just never sound good. Even when it's Eminem and 50. I know they've done a bunch of songs. This never sounds good to me. It just always sounds weird. You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, also, why don't we have any of that like Death Row vibe from back in the days, man? Where's the Dog Pound? Where's Rage? Give Rage another verse on another album. Look for what Rage did for the intro to Doggy Style. For the follow-up to not even feature some of those former Death Row artists who are now signed to Snoop Dogg's version of Death Row Records. Some of them, I don't know if all of them are. Just don't disappoint, man. You've been pushing this album back month by month. I know it's Dr. Dre, he's a perfectionist, but I'm saying, man, like, yo, please don't mess this up. Please. Because as far as speaking for myself, this is a highly anticipated album for me. This has the potential to be top 5, and my top 5, at least right now, are pretty solid. So we'll see. What do you think about the track listing for Snoop and Dr. Dre? Some of the features that are there. Let me just say a couple of titles, like Foreplay, right? There's Missionaries there. Obviously, Gorgeous, Hard Knocks. I get the feeling that joint's probably traditional Dre and Snoop. Excuse me, Out of the Blue. Last Dance with Mary Jane. Now, if that's a weed song and that's a song with Tom Petty and Jelly Roll, if it comes out to be something really dope, then who cares who's featured? Pressure, Another Part of Me with Sting. Please do not have Sting. Sting is cool, but do not have him singing what I think you're doing. I hope Michael Jackson has Another Part of Me. Don't do that, okay? I know I'm putting a lot of rules on Dr. Dre and Snoop, but I'm saying Guns and Smoke, that's 50 Cent Eminem, but who knows what that's going to sound like. A Sticky Situation, Now or Never, Gangsta Pose, The Negotiator. So I'm kind of, again, I feel like I keep using this phrase. I'm kind of cautiously optimistic. I'm going to just say it again. I'm a fan. Not that fan, but I'm a fan. Tyler, the Creator, just released a brand new album entitled Chromacopia. I believe that's the name, right? Chromacopia. Let's make sure we get it right. 14 songs coming in just under an hour, around 53 minutes. A couple of the features include Doshi, Sander Gold, Schoolboy Q, Daniel Caesar. Damn, I'm giving them all kinds of crazy names. Glorilla, Sexy Red, Lil Wayne, Tizo Touchdown. Walking around like Tizo. Is that that's who Kendrick was talking about? But for the most part, y'all know what it is when it comes to this podcast and reviews and reactions to albums. I give it the 3 listen joint. This is for the new people, so people who know, just chill. But I give it 3 listens, right? First listen is my impression. Second listen is kind of to drill down, listen to the lyrics, absorb the concept, really analyze the beats. And the third listen I give it is to confirm what I think about the album. Now, sometimes when it's a bad album, that rule is like a courtesy. Like, I'm just going to make sure it's as whack as I think it is. And when it's a good album, it's almost natural. I want to run it back after this second or third listen. So, therefore, to me, I could walk away feeling like I know the album, and then I go on and listen to it some more if I like it. But I'm not going to hold y'all. For those who want the score right up front, I think this is going to be in my top 5 of the year. I think so. I think it pushes one of the projects I had in my top 5 into my best of the year, but out of my top 5. And I say that because of a number of reasons that I'm gonna go over really quick. Low key, Tyler the Creator has been on a 4 album run that is good to great. It's talking about the albums, good to great. Could be great to classic for some people. That being Flower Boy, then Igor, then what was the last one? What the DJ drama one? I should have had it out because I always forget the title. Anytime somebody makes a sentence their title, I forget it. Like if it ain't one word, 2 words maybe, I'll forget. But the name of the album with DJ Drama from 2021 was "Call Me If You Get Lost." Now, the thing is this is the follow up to that album. And for those who maybe jumped on board with Tyler when the DJ Drama album dropped, because he was like really rapping. It was really about bars and almost like boom bap. You know what I'm saying? What you have to understand, this is a similar situation to someone like a Kendrick, right? Kendrick gives you Good Kid, Mad City. Then he gives you a high conceptual album like To Pimp a Butterfly. Then he turns around and gives you Damn, that has that vibe of Good Kid, Mad City, bars, radio records, cool stuff. Then he gives you a highly concept album like Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Now, obviously, we are due for another Kendrick Compton type album, Not Like Us Notwithstanding, right? So Tyler's the same way. Flower Boy is more on the rap side of things, more on the boom bap side of things in some ways. Igor is Tyler doing more singing, and it's a concept. It is about a love triangle and blah, blah, blah. But then Call Me If You Get Lost brings it right back to being more, especially really way more on the hip hop boom bap side. Chromacopia is conceptual, but it's sort of a mix of the Tyler that raps, the Tyler that sings, the Tyler that reaches for different flows, that's experimental with the beats. And one thing I'll say about this album, I watched his speech after he did the listening party in the stadium, right? And what really got me interested, besides his track record, was the fact that he said he was talking about his life. Like, yo, I'm in my 30s, 40 is right there around the corner, a lot of friends get married, having families, and my biggest accomplishment, today is that I bought another Ferrari or something like that, right? And he said that with this album, he realized with his previous works that he was never really sharing his thoughts. He was always rapping from the perspective of different people, different things, different situations, and never really talked deeply about himself, and his upbringing. And a lot of this album, he said, is based off of questions and conversations he would have with his mother, who was featured on this album a lot more than she was the last album. And with that in mind, I went in and listened, and I have to say, this is a great album. It is. This is why it would crack my top 5, because there's one thing to like albums because the beats are dope, the bars is dope, it's hip hop, right? It's another thing to take all of those different elements, beats, bars, harmony, different types of tracks, different types of features, putting them all together in different ways, different concepts, and this album in particular being steeped in his reality and him sharing stories about himself, stories about his mother, stories about how he feels about his father. And in particular, that song stuck with me the most, like him, or stood out the most to me at the point in time I first heard it, because it comes across like, yo, I don't know my father, but everybody tells me I'm like him, but I don't know him. So therefore, there's no real attachment. But by the end, and especially when you hear his mother talking, she's explaining how much she's like his father, how much he looks like him, walk like him, all of that. But she says the nature of your relationship, which um came across to me as not really being positive, especially in the lyrics, is not your father's fault. It's my fault. I created that separation. I kept you away from him in a lot of regards, and I apologize for it. And there's a lot of moments on this album that are that serious. Serious subjects that don't come across as serious when you hear the beats, right? Because typically when somebody makes a song like that, it's like, go get the piano, and then you just, yo, I'm sorry, could be like it's a whole mood. But not every song for him is like that. And I think that's what I like about this album the most. And this is what I like about Tyler the Creator now. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Goblin dude, the Bastard dude, because it was a lot of shock value. And, for me at my stage in my life, that didn't get me excited as much as it did, way back in the days when I wanted to see how wild a lyric could get. That's why I was a fan of Eminem, because I was like, Eminem just says some crazy stuff. After a while, that's for the kids. I don't really care to hear that from Eminem or anybody. But again, when I heard Flower Boy, I was like, nah, this dude is different. He's just not a better rapper than I thought. He's a better artist than I thought. Which begs the question. And it's funny because another fellow podcaster brought it up in a different way. Joe Budden recently said that Tyler the Creator has a better catalog than J. Cole. And quite honestly, I don't think I disagree with him. Now, with J. Cole's catalog, there's a lot I like. I like Born Sinner, obviously. I like 2014 Forest Hills Drive, right? I even like KOD. I like the last album, like the bench or whatever, off the bench. I don't know what it was called. The one where he was just really bar work. I really like a lot of what J. Cole does. He probably maybe has 2 or 3 albums that don't, I'm kind of like, I'll probably never go back and listen to that ever. But Tyler the Creator to have this kind of a run, but the albums like J. Cole, his albums that are really good are just better as full albums than J. Cole albums that are really good. And the difference is J. Cole, you can kind of see his concepts coming from a mile away. They not to say like they're limited, but they kind of are, in or at least to a person of my age who has experienced a lot. So the subject matter never surprises me. But just like mentioning this song, like him, like on Tyler the Creator's new album, just the way he puts it together, and it's not just about his lyrics. It's about his mother being on the end and revealing why that relationship was like, you know what I'm saying? It's a lot, it's layered. There's a lot being done to convey the message of this song. And I feel like J. Cole typically does that within a verse or two. But it could kind of become, you know, I don't know, numbing in some ways because it becomes monotone. Even though a lot of people didn't like KOD from um, J. Cole, I did. And I kind of wanted him to do more of that, put his pen to the test in that way. And I think people scared him away from doing concept albums, which I hate because it's like, why not? He's done a million of the other records. But while I agree with Joe Budden, I will say this, y'all. J. Cole has put himself in a position where being a part of the big three is he was always third to me, but now I really feel like he's third, considering all the GOAT talk, and I'm number one, and I wish somebody would, and he did nothing. Okay. And now he's apologizing to Drake. Like I all of that kind of soured me, and it makes it difficult to listen to some of those types of bars from him. His music absolutely takes a hit for a lot of people, even if they used to like it. Tyler the Creator is probably number three. Creatively, he's probably number three. Now, his style of music again is more Kendrick and Childish Gambino than anything, and maybe even Chance the Rapper. Um, but I think he's better than Chance the Rapper. He's better than Childish Gambino, in my opinion. He in this same record says he's basically number two behind Kendrick, and I think he is. I think Drake's still there because I'm telling you, my playlist of Drake music is just unmatched. But I think this battle did some damage to how we view those two, rappers in particular. Can J. Cole lyrically, bar for bar, rap Tyler the Creator under the bus? I believe so. But don't sleep on Tyler's pen either, because he's never been in a battle like that, but he's fully capable. I just think that his music output has now surpassed somebody like a J. Cole. And I think with Drake, is his music is just more meaningful. And obviously, this is my view of the big three, but I always put Kendrick at the top because I feel like he did what the other two did, but his music was more meaningful. There was more there to chew on as a fan of music in general, let alone a hip hop fan. And Tyler the Creator does something very similar. Drake has the melodies and keep making me dance and waving my hands. That's a solid three. He number one with that because there's a lot of other people I don't mess with who do that. So I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. What do you think? Did you hear Tyler the Creator's new album, Chromaphobia? Uh, do you not care? Do you care? What rate do you give it? Leave your comments in the comment section below. And lastly, so y'all, I'm not even gonna hold y'all. We're not gonna spend too much time on this, but there is a new song from Gangstarr, DJ Premier, and Guru, rest in peace, Guru, entitled Finish 'Em, which is supposed to be a new single from a upcoming Gangstar album. Now, Premier did a masterful job with the last Gangstar album with a number of unreleased Guru verses that the way he put it together, you would have thought him and Guru worked on this album. It was perfect. It was the perfect send off as well. So I was more than satisfied with that posthumous album dropping because typically we get albums where there are a lot of unfinished verses, unfinished songs, and they throw a bunch of features on the album and none of them sound real. And we know the person is not here anymore and they sound like they're not here anymore. And it just doesn't work, right? This new single, Finish 'Em for Gangstar, is not good to me. The beat is typical of what Premiere does now. I do like the beat switch because I didn't see that. I didn't foresee that when I heard it. But it literally sounds like he had a verse and a hook from Guru and he turned it into a song. It's nothing special whatsoever. And I think maybe if it had a different beat, I don't know, but who knows what Guru thought about this verse and hook when he was making it. So I am not optimistic for any new Gangstar album. But also, as some people know, Havoc and Alchemist have been working on a new Mobb Deep album, which includes a lot of unreleased Prodigy verses. Now, I'm not mad at it as long as they do it in the same way that Premier put together the first posthumous album for Gangstar, right? To me, that was perfect. If it can sound like Have and P are to collectively working on this album, and it doesn't sound like these are some Prodigy verses from different studios and different times, and his younger voices on this track, his older voices on that track. If you can't make it sound like Prodigy was here to help with the album, don't do it. So we'll see about that. But then also in my email, before I even saw a headline, I saw from a promoter sent me an email, new DMX album on the way. Now, DMX, when he passed, he had already been working on an album, right? And that album was the album that dropped after he passed. And when I heard it, even though as far as DMX albums go, it was cool, at least it felt like something that DMX was working on with Swiss Beats. And honestly, that's what I liked about it. It's like, yo, this sounds like what X was working on. This new posthumous album they like is about to drop is loaded with features, meaning again, here we go, there, verse here, verse there, DMX at this point is like that's what the vibes I'm getting. I don't like those albums. I didn't like Biggie's Born Again. I appreciate the efforts, but I don't like it. I never listened to that album. Maybe I'll hit a song or two from that album that's actually good. But for the most part, no, no. So with that being said, I did a show called like the best posthumous albums in hip hop, right? And believe it or not, there are a couple, right? Pac have some, Life After Death was released after Biggie passed, but it was basically done, right? But it's still a posthumous album if it drops after the fact. A couple of people, have had those situations, and sometimes is not good. Most times it's not good. It's rare that it's a good thing, right? Like Fife Dog, the Last Tribe album. Fife was a part of that album. So he's on the majority of the album in a way they created, him and Q-Tip created the album together. And there may be a song or two where he wasn't, but you literally cannot tell because of how Q-Tip put it together. Fife isn't here no more, but when you listen, you just know that no, Fife worked on this album. He didn't just get started; he worked on this album. So there are plenty of new verses from him. Um, I feel like those are the albums. Those are the only albums that should be released when you talk about posthumous albums, because those are the only ones that are good. Now, I will say this: speaking to the Gangstar thing, if Premier just so happened to say, yo, I have a few Gangstar records that never really fit any of the albums we were dropping. And by the time, we got to our later albums, some of those songs we couldn't even use because the vibe was older compared to music that was out at the time. But here's like a lost tapes of Gangstar songs throughout the years that didn't make albums, but we still feel like they're good. Absolutely. I'll take it. You know why? Because the context is this is old. This we did this in 93, we did that joint in like 9-6, and we did that joint in 9-4. There's a story to be told there, right? And it's not made up and it's not manufactured. It's really just saying we're opening the vault for some songs you guys have never heard. We like them, but if we put them all on one album for this reason, we think people will rock with it. I'm saying, can we get that? So that's what I feel like with the Mobb Deep joint. Like, yo, did y'all record any Mobb Deep records? Are there any records that didn't make like, like mixtape best of kind of B-side things like Free Agents and stuff like that? Was that all of them? So I would prefer that when you're talking about posthumous albums from rappers. I'm not opposed to it. I just would prefer if they do it, it's done right. Because otherwise, sometimes these albums, like what this DMX album is going to be, and kind of what this Gangstar, at least from the first single, sounds like it's going to be, it just reminds us that these people are no longer here. It just does. It's is a greater feeling for the fan if you know Prodigy was working with Havoc on that album and we just wanted to bring it to y'all. Then you feel like Prodigy left you one last dope album, before he left. Instead of maybe Prodigy never really wanted that verse out ever. He didn't like it. But here it is on this new single. So I don't know. We'll see. I haven't heard the full Gangstarr album. I'm anticipating the Mobb Deep album. And I will not listen to the DMX album because I can't do it. So there you have it. How do you feel about posthumous albums? Leave your comments in the comment section below. You can follow me everywhere on social media at Vegas World INC. Please know this podcast is available on all podcasting platforms, as well on YouTube, where we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Right now we're approaching 700, but we got a long way to go, but we can get there very quickly. So since about 50% or more of you don't subscribe to the podcast, but you watch the videos, now's the time. And more importantly, if you like it, hit that like button and share it with people you know would enjoy this kind of content. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.